We are, as you probably know, part of Brooklyn's community access television network. Now, public access TV became part of the culture almost half a century ago. It was an attempt to democratize a medium controlled by media giants and corporate advertisers. So much has changed, right? Yeah, 50 years on. Well, video artists jumped at the opportunity presented to them, and you can see how in a new exhibit in our Brick House Gallery. It's called Public Access Open Networks, and it opens Wednesday night.
Before we meet the curator and two of the featured video artists, let's take a look at a clip from one of their works. Here is a short piece from Natalie Bookchin's documentary, Long Story Short.
I grew up in a small town in Arkansas called England, Arkansas, population 3,060 people. There was a set of railroad tracks that ran through the middle of the town, whites on one side, blacks on the other.
I grew up on the wrong side of the street.
On my side of the street were ran down apartments, and then on the opposite side of the street were upscale condos.
The whites owned all the property and the farms, and the blacks worked on the farms.
But out here in California,
I seen only black people.
I didn't grow up with many white people around. It was pretty much just us.
Hispanics,
Latinos,
a lot of African Americans
and Mexicans
lived on the flatlands.
It's not like in a very good neighborhood.
Not the good areas of LA.
And then predominantly middle class.
Rich people, people who have good money live in the hills, you know. They don't want to be where the urban people are, you know. They don't want to be where all the poverty is and where all the people who are homeless.
It's not, a coincidence. This is done all over the United States.
We were like pretty much secluded from the regular city, you know.
And they have it all cornered in and contained right there around the police station.
The air even smells different for some reason.
And the police is patrolling to make sure that we don't bother the nice neighborhoods. I'll make this more clear. There's not a lot in the neighborhood.
It's nothing positive out here.
There's so many people out of jobs there, out in the street looking for jobs.
I would never seen in the suburbs of white neighborhoods.
African American men hanging out on a corner.
The white guys hanging out at the liquor store. Matter of fact, they didn't even have liquor stores too much in the suburbs. They had liquor barns or,
Okay, in my neighborhood.
In Compton is
within 2-block radius. You have 6
you see liquor stores. We have
it's like a
liquor store on every corner.
Do the math.
Do the math indeed, or just come and watch the arts. Well, we are going to introduce our guest, I promise. But first, for some visual context, we want to show you the short promo clip for Public Access Open Networks.
Years of thorough scientific research have finally brought some light into the history of television and video.
We feel it rushing through our bodies, through our nerve endings.
I'm the rock and roll psychiatrist. Would you like to write a song?
It seems really beautiful that folks are like, let's just do it and see how it works out.
I'm welcoming you to what promises to be a rather unusual event in live television.
It's not conventional art. It's different.
You didn't see me as a mother, a sister, a daughter, or a woman, but as a commodity.
So you could hip hop that shit out,
I'm an individual and I don't conform to anybody or anything.
This is our crusade.
Rewind, back to the top.
And now, finally, here to tell us what's going on behind us in our gallery is BRIC's own Jenny Gerow, curator of the exhibit, The Latest from BRIC Contemporary Art. Welcome back to BK Live, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Also here at the table, video artist Natalie Bookchin. We just saw a piece of her long story short. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
and Latham Zearfoss of Pilot TV. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
So that's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
My brain is still like on simmer from watching this. So the obvious question is, how did this come to the gallery? But another part of that is, what took so long? We're like the hub of this stuff, but it's finally made its way to the gallery.
I mean, that was my question too, is, you know, we have 3 different departments here at BRIC, and I think that until we were under one roof, we weren't really collaborating the same way as we are now, and so it seemed just necessary at this point to have the visual artists in conversation with the artists upstairs creating video work on our public access network.
It's cool. To some fantastic results as we just saw some work. We're going to start with you, Ms. Bookchin. You want to get in there?
Yeah, Ms. Bookchin. So we just saw a bit of Long Story Short. Can you tell us about that project and how that came about?
Sure. So it's a film. It's a 45-minute film that I completed in 2016, in which I spent a year in 2011 in Northern and Southern California, and I talked to over 100 people, and I asked people I went to literacy centers and to homeless shelters, job training programs, and I asked people to participate by making a video and talk about what they thought that politicians, that middle class and wealthy people needed to know about the experience of living with little or no money, like what they felt was missing from the narrative, from the story, and what they thought was left out. And so then with this enormous archive of videos that I created, I made a film in which I tried to make visible in some way, you know, the massive archive. By, instead of focusing on single characters or single subjects, moving in between choruses of multiple speakers. I thought of it more like a musical composition where there are soloists and duets and choruses, so that people speak both as individuals but also as part of a larger group. And they talk about, you know, sort of, you know, what they think people need to know that they don't know about. And I used, to make the film, I used social media forms. Like I had people make, you know, sort of video diaries.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you go in and film them, or was everybody filming on their own in different media?
I went in and talked to people about what I was doing, and then I asked them to talk directly to the camera, to their audience, rather than, you know, specifically to me. Because I wanted to use the forms that I think in many ways are partly the cause of the inequality and the division, you know, that the way that social media itself has helped to perpetuate, you know, sort of big winners and big losers, and how certain stories are not, you know, sort of in the narrative. Right. And so I wanted to use those same tools to actually, you know, sort of lift up or to make audible and visible stories that were missing.
Well, Latham, we want to talk about your work at Pilot TV as well, but first we're going to see some of it. So we got a clip.
Good. I hope it stays.
I think it will.
Welcome to Pilot.
It's 55.
Okay. In Chicago. So we're just discussing Chicago here, but this art form has spread across the globe, starting at local points that really shows people how people really live. That's not corporatized. So I wondered, looking at that 50-year arc, where you think you come in, because you're clearly not first wave of the people who use this medium. So what do you think of using Airwaves right now to get your artistic expression out?
Well, I think, I mean, I can tell you that we come in 2004 is when the conference was, so that can give you like an exact date. But also, you know, that is a time that is definitely feeling the impact of the internet or the connectivity of the internet without the sort of ubiquity of streaming video. Gotcha. So that's kind of, I think, where we fall most readily in this kind of trajectory. But what was the other part of the question?
Just about how it is attractive versus, especially with the advent of the internet and now it's its own thing, like why it's still viable to use the airwaves and these public access points as a statement.
I'm just gonna kind of riff and maybe I'll hit something interesting,
Yeah,
but yeah, cool. But I think at that time, thinking about that the airwaves feel like they have a, again, to use the word ubiquity, they have a kind of like a they're for everyone kind of a quality, which I think now we think of media as much more sort of focused or sort of tailored to our interests, for better or worse. And so I think the idea of projecting a sort of a marginal presence or identity, which a pilot was very much interested in, was very much interested in representing underrepresented folks, but through their own sort of self-organized representation. Gotcha. And creating a kind of like a very lateral situation where it wasn't just like people writing a part for a particular identity, but rather they were behind the cameras and everyone was kind of collaborating. Right. So a very process-oriented space. And yeah, and I think at the time there was a sort of a political urgency of taking over at least the suggestion of the airwaves as a space of inserting ourselves into a mainstream conversation, even if we were relegated to a marginal space, if that makes sense.
So Jenny, we've got the gallery all set up now. We've been sneaking peeks as things have been constructed, and one of the large centerpieces is a stage setup. What's going on there?
Yeah. So again, talking about all of the creation that's happening in our space upstairs that's kind of hidden in these studios, we're thinking about opening it up and allowing an audience to actually witness the TV making that's happening. So on Fridays and Saturdays for 3 weekends, there will be public access shows live on our stoop. So the public access artists will come in, and it's almost kind of like a variety show. So there'll be 3 shows, as well as musicians. I think we've got some aerobics instructors, awesome. Soul Train lines. Like, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're trying to think of mashups in ways that you would typically consume a public access show. So they don't exactly match up, and it's just like you come in and you experience what you experience.
I'm obsessed with the church shows that come on.
Like, oh, are you?
Loving the church.
I did not know that.
Loving the church.
It's my thing. I love those church things and the video mashups like those Concrete TV and all those. But so many amazing voices. I love what you said about letting people represent themselves in that expression.
Yes.
Thank you for the work.
It's here March 23rd through
May 7th.
May 7th.
But come down, see it often, and visit those live shows that are happening.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.